الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. We were extremely fortunate that out of this mosque came out the miracle of Quran. Proof that Quran is the word of God. And to come to the conclusion that salvation can be attained only by worshiping God alone. I'm going to wait a minute for that. We're waiting for you, Mahtashan.
Where are you really?
Yeah. We come to the conclusion after that miracle that we must be absolutely, positively worshipping God alone, and we must realize that only God possesses the power to benefit you or harm you, that only He is worthy of worship, that everyone else in the past generations is dead, helpless, powerless. Whether it is Muhammad or Jesus or Mary, they are dead, they are useless, they are powerless, they are helpless, and this is what the Quran says. We came to that conclusion. And we've had some strange opposition. Because of that strange opposition, I'm going to read the latest of the letters of support that we get. This one is really enthusiastic. And I look forward to meeting you and Brother Rashad, whose discovery is, in my humble opinion, the most important event in the history of Islam in the last 1,000 years. So we do need this support once in a while. However, I'm surprised because it's not supposed to be appreciated until about 3 or 4 generations from now. The present generation, usually, contemporary generations, usually do not appreciate great discoveries. But I don't claim any part of it. It is God's will to bring it to the world at this time. Now, we've come to this conclusion as a very small minority to the extent that this is probably the only mosque in the world that only commemorates God alone, and no other names are mentioned with God, which is in agreement with the commandment of Quran that mosques belong to Allah. You shall not call on anyone else. وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. With God. Do not call on anyone with God. Ma'a means with. This, since we are such a small minority, and the vast majority of Muslims are not in agreement with us, at least the ones who haven't read. By the way, the only opposition we ever have is from people who did not read the miracle, who never read it. The people who do not know. This has been the only opposition. And these very people, the minute they read it or know about it, they completely go to the exact opposite. Because they want to make up for the past opposition, so they become enthusiastic supporters. Alhamdulillah. But the question is, are all those millions of Muslims wrong? And you are right? This is the important question that you must face. This is the question that will be asked to you. All those ulama, those scholars, millions of Muslims and generations of Muslims, are they wrong to follow Hadith and Sunnah and not to follow the Quran alone? And you are right? This is the question I want to address in this book. And there's an equally important question. Those millions upon millions of Christians and Christian scholars, are they all wrong? When they say Jesus Son of God, or Jesus is God, or Jesus part of a Trinity. You are right, and all those millions of Christians and millions of generations of Christians, are they all wrong? An important question, isn't it? Before I go any further, I want to tell you one thing. If you worship God alone, you can never be wrong. This is the whole purpose of life. On the other side, we can say they may be right. Maybe they are right, okay, but this is a maybe. And to find out if it's a maybe right or maybe wrong, you have to wait for the hereafter to find out. Now, if you're willing to take that chance, I am not. So the question we want to deal with now is, are those millions upon millions of Muslims wrong and you are right? Are those millions upon millions of Christians wrong and you are right? Let us look at the Quran. We're going to open first Surah 7, verse 18. Okay, let's go to the top of the page, page 103 at 14. This is the fall of Satan. Satan said, respite me till the day of resurrection. God said, you are respited. Satan said, since you will that I go astray, I will always skulk on your straight path and mislead them. Then I will come to them from their front, from behind them, from their right and from their left, and you will find most of them unappreciative. God said, you are evicted therefrom, despised and debased. Those who follow you will join you in hell. Now, let's move on to, so we have Satan's pledge to mislead us all. And he is very powerful. I want to tell you, give you an idea as to how powerful. I think he can hold the whole earth in his hand. The whole planet Earth in his hand. He was God's assistant. And he wants to do God's errands and serve God. So God gave him a lot of power. This what made him think he can be a God with God. I think, I'm not sure, that he can manipulate the thoughts of every human being on earth at the same time, simultaneously. That's how powerful Satan is. And he pledged, he swore by God's dignity to mislead us all. فَبِعِزَّتِكَ لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. He's very strong. We're up against a terrible enemy. But also when you join La ilaha illallah, the worship of God alone, he cannot touch you. Because God puts guards on you who are more powerful than him, than Satan. And they keep him away. You know that from the Quran. But let us go on to Surah 11, verse 119. 119. Page 155. Only those endowed with mercy from your Lord will not dispute. And this is what he created them for. Your Lord's decision has already... I don't know why I'm a couple of verses off. Let me see. Just go back to 116 and then see if we find what is after here. If only the previous generations had some intelligent people who enjoined them from corruption, they would have been saved. But we saved a few of them, while the rest pursued their material things and became sinners. Your Lord never destroys any community unjustly, while the people are righteous. Had your Lord willed, he could have made all the people one congregation. He could have been all believers. But as it happens, the majority are not believers, or they are believers who fell in idol worship. Had your Lord willed, he could have made all the people one congregation, but they will always dispute. Only those endowed with mercy from your Lord will not dispute, and this is what he created them for. So the purpose of our creation is to differ. Your Lord's decision has already been made that I will fill Gehenna of both jinns and humans. This is the part I wanted you to hear. That your Lord's decision has already been made. God already saw the day of judgment, and he saw that the vast majority of people are going to hell. This is in studying the question, are those millions upon millions of Muslims right? Wrong? Are those millions upon millions of Christians right or wrong? The Muslims fell in the same trap as the Christians. They're in the same problem. They cannot worship God alone. They have to mention other names with God. Next, I want to look at 12.103. These are the famous verses that you know. 12.103. The repetition helps you remember these so you can discuss it with anybody. 103 says, under the subtitle, the majority of people will not believe. It says, the majority of people, no matter what you do, will not believe. So this is the majority of people to start with. The minority will believe. Alright? Let's go on. Even though you do not ask them for any wage, for this is a message to all the people. And even though the heavens and the earth are full of signs, they pass by them totally heedless. And now listen to this. The majority of the minority attains salvation. So now we see the majority of people disbelieve, and now we have a minority of believers. The majority of believers are going to hell. This is what the Quran says, 106. And the majority of those who believe fall into idol worship. وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. These are famous verses that you should memorize by heart. 12.103 and 12.106. That the majority of people will not believe, and then the majority of the minority, the majority of the believers will fall into idol worship and will go to hell, because idol worship is not forgivable. And I want to clarify here, idol worship at the time of death. If the person dies in a state of idol worship, he cannot be forgiven. But if you discover that you're an idol worshipper and you repent and you pledge you'll never do it again, then it is wiped out. Because this is the whole idea of our existence, is to come to the conclusion that only God is to be worshipped. These are shocking facts. Now the millions upon millions of Muslims who do not believe God when He says the Quran is complete, they believe in God, they really do. And they pray the 5 prayers, they pray them to God. But they idolize saints or the Prophet. They have fallen into idol worship. And this is a statement of fact in 106, that the majority of believers will fall into idol worship. So you have to be in an extremely fortunate minority. An extremely fortunate person in an extreme minority to really make it. And that's what Satan did to us. Let's go on to 32, verse 13. Surah 32. Verse 13, 1-3. That's the bottom of page 283. Had we willed, we could have given guidance to everyone, but it is already predetermined that I fill hell with jinns and humans all together. Another statement of fact. It is already predetermined. God already saw the day of judgment, and God saw already that the majority of people flunk as disbelievers, and the majority of believers flunk as idol worshippers. Let's go on to 36:7. Page 300, it says, it is already predetermined that the majority of people will not believe. And we go on to 38:85. 38:85. That's page 313. I will fill hell with you and all those who follow you. Let me go back to 78. 75. Let's go back to 75. God said, O Satan, what prevented you from prostrating before my creation? Are you too arrogant or much too high? Satan said, I am better than he. You created me from fire and created him from clay. God said, then you must get out, for you are rejected. You have deserved my curse till the day of judgment. Satan said, my Lord, respite me till the day of resurrection. God said, you are respited until the specified time. 82, Satan said, I swear by your majesty that I will mislead them all, except your servants who are absolutely devoted to you alone. These are the ones that Satan cannot touch. Because the minute you decide God alone, and you decide you believe God, you have guards on you who are more powerful than Satan, and they will keep him away. So let me read this again. 83. Except your servants who are absolutely devoted to you alone. God said, the truth is, and I utter only truth, I will fill hell with you and all those who follow you. And unfortunately, as you saw in Surah 12, that's the vast majority of people. Millions upon millions of Christians and Muslims and Jews. So you see in the Quran that it is a statement of fact. So when you think in your mind, when I tell you those millions upon millions of Christians, are they wrong and you are right? God tells you, yes, they are wrong. If they idolize Jesus, they are wrong. If they idolize anyone or any saint or anything, they are wrong. And if they die in this state, they'll go straight to hell. And this is what we saw, those verses that we just looked at. And the same is true with the Muslims. Millions upon millions of them do not believe God when He says the Quran is complete. And we are told in the Quran that the shields fall in them, deafness falls in their ears, and they cannot hear the message. They are not allowed to understand the Quran. And we had people here saying that you have to know Arabic to know the Quran the other day. And I showed them verse in the Quran that says, no, you don't have to know Arabic. It says whether it is Arabic or non-Arabic, it is available only to the believers, the sincere believers. As for the disbelievers, they are blind and deaf to it. This is Surah 41, verse 44. Yeah, 41, 44. So it has nothing to do with language. God puts the Quran in the person's heart. Now, those millions upon millions of Christians and millions upon millions of Muslims, is God unjust? Why are they all going to hell? Why is God saying it is already predetermined I will fill hell from all of them? We know God is gracious and merciful. God calls Himself Arham al-Rahimin, the most merciful of all the merciful ones. God is the most merciful. So why is all these people going to hell? Is He unjust? God says in the Quran that He does not inflict an atom's worth of injustice. You see, this is the people's choice. In fact, they insist on it. God puts fences between them and hell, and they go jump the fence. They insist on climbing the fence. God puts barbed wire on top of the fence, and those fencing makes it impossible for the human being to go to hell. And they insist that they scratch themselves and go up the fence to jump in hell. That's what they do. You're going to see it right now. Let us look at 7:172. It's the choice that the people insist on. 7:172. That's page 116. Knowledge of God, our natural instinct. Recall that your Lord gathered all the descendants of Adam before creation and had them bear witness on themselves, saying, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? They said, yes, indeed, we bear witness. Therefore, you cannot say on the day of resurrection, we never knew about this. Nor can you say, it was our parents who set up idols and we followed in their footsteps. You know, this is what they taught us. This is what my parents taught me. This is why they teach us this, but that is not an acceptable excuse. So God put an instinct in us to worship Him alone. Just like the bird. Who taught the bird to sit on the eggs until they hatch? Do the birds go to school? What makes the bird, the mother bird, and the father bird come back and feed the babies? You know, they sit in the nest with their mouth like this. And there comes the mother and the father and they feed them. What makes them do that? They didn't go to school. They have no certificates. But God put the instinct in them. And God put in us the instinct to worship Him alone. So God is just. When we idolize Muhammad or Jesus or Mary or saints, we go against our instinct. Have you tried to chase a bird away from the eggs? She refuses. Because that's against her instinct. Her instinct is to sit on the eggs until they hatch. And you go chase it away. If you try to take the eggs, they will come and pick you, and especially if it's a big, powerful bird. So it is their instinct. And to prove it once again, let's look at 30:30. Surah 30, verse 30. That's the bottom of page 277. Under the subtitle Monotheism is Natural Instinct. Let's start at 28. God cites herein an example from among you. Would you share your assets with your servants to the extent that you become equal and to the extent that you respect them as they respect you now? Think of your boss at work. Is he going to give you enough responsibilities that you'll be equal to you? You equal to him? We thus explain the revelations for those who understand. Indeed, the wicked follow their own opinions without knowledge. Can anyone guide those misguided by God? No one can help them. 30, this is the one we want to look at. Therefore, you shall devote yourself completely to the religion of monotheism. This is the natural instinct. This is the natural instinct that God implanted into the people. Nothing can change such creation of God. This is the perfect religion, but most people do not know. Did you see that? Instinct. This is the natural instinct that God put in us. Is God just? Or is he not just? This is why God says that he does not inflict an atom's weight of injustice. Because he put in us the instinct before we came to this world. He put in us the one God, the worship of one God. And when we go and idolize Jesus or Muhammad, we are going against our instinct. Let us look at 179. Surah 7, verse 179. Page 117. It says, we have assigned to hell multitudes of jinns and humans. This is the idea that I started the khutbah with. We have assigned to hell multitudes, millions upon millions, of jinns and humans. They are the ones who have hearts that do not understand, eyes that do not see, and ears that do not hear. They are like animals. No, they are even worse. They are unaware. So they do not think. See, what's wrong with us in this mosque? We used our brains, that's what. We thought. We did not accept what was given to us from our parents, our ulama, so-called scholars and so forth. We used our brain. And this is the commandment in Quran. In Surah 17:36, let's look at it. 17:36. Page 190, 46. Do not, or you shall not accept anything that you yourself cannot ascertain. You are given the hearing, the eyes, and the mind in order to examine and verify. You are responsible for it, because God gave you those. So remember the last verse where it says they have hearts with which they do not understand, eyes with which they do not see, and ears with which they do not hear. And here God is telling you, you shall not accept anything until you are positive that it is correct. Because you are hanging your salvation on it. It's your neck. You are the one who will go to heaven or to hell. So when you hear anything from anyone, you have to ascertain and make sure that it is right. Whether it is your parents, your ulama, your president, your wife, your husband, whatever it is, you must ascertain, you must be absolutely positive, because you are the one who will go to heaven or hell. It is your neck. The relations we have here, mothers, fathers, children, and all this, is just a means of reproduction here. But we are all independent individuals when we go in the hereafter. Now, let me give you one example, okay, of using our minds. And it has to do with our particular situation here where we follow or not follow hadith or sunnah. We'll take the example of the salat prayers, the most important worship. There are millions upon millions of Muslims pray the noon and the afternoon silently. Rak'ahs number 3 and 4 are always silent in Maghrib and Isha. Okay? This is millions upon millions. If you go to Al-Hussein Mosque in Cairo and pray the noon in a loud voice, you'll have 20 people conversion who are telling you you're wrong. Anywhere in the Muslim world. You go right here in Tucson to the Islamic Center and pray the noon in a loud voice, they will come and correct you. Anywhere. This is the only mosque in the world where we pray the noon in a loud voice. Or the Asr not a loud voice, but in an audible voice. Now why? There's a commandment in Quran that says, now when you ask them why do you do that, Mujahid asked them that question, and they came up with the Prophet said and the scholars said. They give you that Sunnah business and Hadith business. So now God gave us the brain, and He gave us eyes and ears, as you see in this verse, 17:36. We have to think. There's a commandment in the Quran that says, you shall not pray silently. You shall not pray too loud or silently, but seek an intermediate tone. ولا تجهر بصلاتك ولا تخافت بها وابتغ بين ذلك سبيلا. So the Quran is لا تخافت, do not say it silently. Now we see in the Quran in several verses the Prophet says, I am afraid to disobey my Lord. I'm afraid of the retribution of a terrible day. إني أخاف إن عصيت ربي عذاب يوم عظيم. Put إني أخاف. So the Prophet himself is ordered to say, therefore, and also logically, the Prophet will not disobey God, will he? See, they are the people who claim to follow and love the Prophet. The Christians claim to follow and love Jesus. And the Muslims claim to follow and love Muhammad. But they are the first ones who ridicule him and disobey him. Will he disobey God? This is a commandment of Quran, Surah 17, verse 110. You shall not pray silently. A commandment. Is it possible at all that the Prophet disobeyed that and prayed silently? So we have to use our brain. And this is why you saw in the 7172 that these people are going to hell because they have hearts or minds with which they do not understand, eyes with which they do not see, and ears with which they do not hear. It doesn't take too much thinking, using the brain, to know that it's impossible for the Prophet to disobey God. They disrespect the Prophet. I didn't intend to say this, but I'm going to say it. One of the things that they say, and they said it's a religious order, is that polygamy is limited by 4. Now, when the Prophet died, he had 9 wives. So how do you explain that? They're really on the spot when they explain that, because polygamy is not limited in Quran. There may be situations in the future where polygamy must be, every man must have 100 wives. I don't know. We don't know what the situation may be in the future, but polygamy is not limited in Quran. Anywhere in Quran. But they limit this, and they have hundreds of hadiths telling you that polygamy is limited by 4. And they forget, see, they don't use the prayer. They forget that their idol, against his will, the deification of Muhammad against his will, they forget that he left 9 wives when he died. How do you explain that? And then they turn around and say he knew the future. Well, somebody will tell you he married this before the commandment came, which is not true, because the verse that they abuse in Surah Women, that's 2, 3, or 4, they stop, because the verse stopped at 4, there's not a limitation. Because the verse is not going to say 2, 3, or 4, or 5, or 6, or 7, or 8, or 9, it will not go on forever. You have to stop somewhere. It did not say it is limited by 4. But when they did this, that verse came early in Medina. And the Prophet married women after that. In fact, most of them he married after that verse came down. So they have no way around it. But they are the people who insult the Prophet and disrespect him and disobey him. One more thing that I didn't intend to say. The other day they were telling you all, you follow the hadith of the Prophet anyway. When you pray, you read Al-Fatiha, and this is hadith of the Prophet. Now, you have to be very alert here. It's true. We follow the true hadith of the Prophet. Al-Fatiha came out of Muhammad's mouth. We follow the Quran. This is the proven hadith of the Prophet, the only hadith. And the Quran says that. It says this is the only hadith. We do follow the hadith of Muhammad that came out of his mouth, the Quran. Now what they think is the hadith of the Prophet are things that are attributed to the Prophet. I'm laughing because yesterday we grabbed one of the books of hadith and we read a hadith how the sun rises between two horns of the devil. So don't pray. This is in Bukhari. So what they think is hadith, and of course we went through the series of narrations with all the funny names in it, you know, that we heard from this person, that he heard from his father, that he heard from his great uncle, that he heard from somebody that the Prophet said, he said that the Prophet said, that 8 generations of Muhammad's mouth. And you have to tell them, listen, yes, we do follow the only hadith, the only acceptable hadith, which is the Quran, nothing but the Quran. You guys are following the hadith of narrators, storytellers, who told you that Muhammad said this 8 generations ago. Tubu ila Allah. Repent. Alhamdulillah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. One of the things that they will try to get you with is a classic one. They tell you worship Rashad Khalif. And the object is, you want to prove to them that you don't worship Rashad Khalif, so you must go and beat him up or something, you know, preferably shoot him or something, to prove that you don't worship him. But this is an old one, because it insults your pride, you know, your ego. And it also uses the same thing we're using. We're saying, do not worship anyone besides God. But you know something? Worshipping the imam or the scholars is an established idol worship in Quran, is a fact. People do worship their scholars, or imams, or priests, or rabbis, or whatever, or their leaders, whatever you want to call it. I'm not putting myself in any of those categories, but just using because to answer their argument. Now, I want you to look to see it in the Quran, Surah 9:31. 9 verse 31. The top of page 129. They have taken their priests and rabbis as lords besides God, as well as Christ, the Son of Mary. They were commanded not to worship but the one God. There is no God except He, much too glorious to have partners. So how do we know we did not fall in this same trap? See? One thing we do in this mosque is we face the questions, we face the issues, and we attack them, and we obliterate them. It doesn't matter what the issue is. And this is the essence of freedom. You must be free to face any question and solve it. You must never have any doubts in your heart. Now how do we know that we didn't fall in this trap? They have taken the priests and rabbis, and I can add to this, and imams and scholars and ulama as gods besides God. This is straightforward. Does this mean they fall prostrate before the priest or rabbi or imam or scholar? So this is what it means. You see, some people think on the other side that worship means they bow and fall prostrate. But that's not it. The criterion is that we must know and we must distinguish whether we fell in that trap or not. If the scholar or the priest or the rabbi or the imam or the alim or whoever it is saying something that is exactly identical to what God says, and you follow that, you are not setting up the scholar or the imam or the priest or the rabbi as a God besides God. You are not worshipping the priest or the rabbi or the imam or the scholar. But if the scholar or the imam or the rabbi or the priest says something that is different from what God said, and you follow that, and instead of following God, then you have set the imam as a God besides God. Not only that, you set the imam or the scholar or the priest or the rabbi as a God instead of God. And a good example is what I mentioned in the first khutbah. Now God said, you shall not pray silently. And the scholar said, you shall pray silently. Now who is your God? Do you see what the verse says? Line 31. If the imam or the scholar is saying something different from what God said, and you follow that, then you are worshiping the imam or the scholar. This is your criteria. But when the scholar or the priest or the rabbi or the imam is saying something that's identical to what God said, you're bound to obey. Absolute obedience is required, as you know from the story of Moses and his teacher. Moses, a prophet. And God showed us a prophet, not just any human being, one of the great ones. And the absolute obedience was demanded. Because if any one of us tells me or tells you, you shall worship God alone. Now, you have two choices. You either obey him or her, or you disobey him or her. Okay, if you obey him or her, you will worship God alone. If you disobey, this means you will worship somebody else besides God. So this is why absolute obedience is required. And it is not worshiping that person at all. You are worshiping God. And you are following those words because they are the words of God, not because they are the words of the scholar or the imam. So the Muslims, millions upon millions of them, have taken their scholars as gods besides God. I can give you hundreds of examples, which are right here in the Quran. And this one is a good one, the one that Mujahid used the other day discussing it with them. He said, why do you pray the noon and the afternoon silently when God said you shall not pray silently? It's because they have taken their scholars as gods besides God. So when they tell you you're worshipping Rashad Khalifa, they're really looking in the mirror. It's what they have. It's something that they are doing. They have taken their scholars and their imam as gods besides God. They would always try to get you. This is a classic. And we're going to go fast through these verses. 790. You have to get used to them getting you in many different ways. Look at 790, for example. Page 109. The elders who disbelieved among his people said, if you follow Shu'aib, you will be a loser. And even more profound is Surah 40, verse 26. 40, 26. You're going to laugh at this one. Page 323. What verse did I say? 26. Pharaoh said, let me kill Moses, and let him implore his Lord. I fear lest he alters your religion or spreads corruption on earth. This is Pharaoh speaking. He's afraid Moses would alter the religion of the Egyptians or spread corruption on earth. And they will always tell you this. They will tell you, if you worship God alone, you're going to be losers. You're going to corrupt your religion. You're not Muslims. You even go to that extent. You're not Muslims. You worship God alone. You are not Muslims. It's very serious. They deify their prophets, Jesus and Muhammad, against their will. And we learn from Quran, Surah 25, verse 31, that Muhammad will disown them on the day of judgment. And we learn from Matthew in the Bible, 7:23, that Jesus will disown them on the day of judgment. بارك الله فيما الله وبعد الإحسان وإيتاء وقال ربنا عزتنا نحن بالشهود أقم الصلاة